There's a reason Jung called self-acceptance terrifying. Because the truth is, most people spend their entire lives running from themselves. Not from danger, not from the world, not from failure, but from the quiet, unfiltered reality of who they actually are beneath the masks, the habits, the expectations, the persona they've built to survive. The world has taught you to fear many things, but nothing compares to the fear of seeing yourself without distortion. You think you're afraid of rejection, or judgment, or loss. But beneath all those fears is a deeper one, the fear of meeting the person you've been carrying inside your chest all these years. The one you silence when things get too real. The one you distract when the truth begins to surface. The one you keep hidden beneath your performance, your strength, your numbness, your smile. Accepting yourself completely means lowering every mask you've ever worn and letting your raw self stand there. Not as a role, not as an identity, but as a soul. That's why people run. That's why people stay busy. That's why people keep chasing noise and distraction. Silence is dangerous when you're not ready to meet what lives in it. There's a part of you you've avoided for so long that it's become a stranger. But it's still yours. It's been waiting. And when life strips you of your usual defenses, in heartbreak, in loneliness, in failure, in exhaustion, that part steps forward again. And you feel it. You feel it in the heaviness that descends out of nowhere. You feel it in the nights where sleep won't come. You feel it in the ache that doesn't have a name. You feel it in the strange sadness that slips into your chest and asks you to stop pretending. Self-acceptance always begins with a disturbance, a crack in the persona, a fracture in the story you've told yourself about who you are. Because who you are on the surface is rarely who you are underneath. You've hidden your anger because you were taught it was dangerous. You've hidden your softness because someone mocked it. You've hidden your needs because they weren't met. You've hidden your dreams because they scared you. You've hidden your desires because they felt too large, too wild, too alive. You've hidden your grief because no one held it. You've hidden your longing because acknowledging it would break you open. But what you hide doesn't disappear. It becomes your shadow, and the shadow waits for the moment you slow down enough to feel it again. Accepting yourself completely means turning toward that shadow and saying, "I'm done pretending you don't exist." That is terrifying, because the shadow holds everything you were taught to reject. All the impulses you suppressed, all the pain you swallowed, all the mistakes you buried, all the memories you blurred, all the truths you abandoned, all the potential you feared. It's frightening to look at your own darkness, not because it wants to destroy you, but because it holds the parts of you that were never allowed to live. People think the shadow is the worst in them, but Jung believed the opposite. The shadow is also where your gold is buried, your fire, your courage, your creativity, your honesty, your intuition, your passion, your power, your true individuality. But to retrieve that gold, you must face the darkness wrapped around it. And that's where most people turn back, not because they're weak, but because the truth is heavy and the ego is fragile. You've built identities your entire life to feel safe, the good one, the quiet one, the tough one, the intelligent one, the strong one, the unbothered one, the helper, the achiever, the one who has it all together. These roles protected you. They gave you a place in the world. They made you feel accepted. But none of them were the whole truth. Self-acceptance means letting these identities die, one by one, until only the real you remains. The one you were before you learned to hide. The one you've been trying to return to without realizing it. That's the terrifying part. Because losing the mask feels like losing yourself, even though it's the first time you're actually finding yourself. What if people don't like the real you? What if you don't like the real you? What if the truth is loud? What if the truth changes everything? What if the truth demands you stop living the way you've been living? This is why Jung said the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because acceptance is not about comfort. Acceptance is about surrender. You surrender the mask. You surrender the performance. You surrender the illusion of perfection. You surrender the story that kept you small. You surrender the person you pretended to be in order to survive. And in that surrender, something else emerges. Something honest, something ancient, something unmistakably yours. Your real self. The self you abandoned to fit in. The self you betrayed to be loved. The self you silenced to be accepted. The self you shrunk to stay safe. When you begin to accept yourself completely, you feel grief first. Because you realize how long you've been estranged from your own soul. You realize how many years you lived in partial truth, how many times you swallowed your voice, how much of your life was shaped by fear instead of authenticity. But right behind that grief comes a strange, quiet relief, as if your soul recognizes something it lost. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to feel without shame. You begin to see your past clearly, without distortion. You begin to understand why you broke in certain places. You begin to forgive yourself without forcing it. You begin to reclaim pieces of yourself you thought were gone forever. You stop apologizing for being human. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop chasing validation like oxygen. You stop fearing your own emotions. You stop performing strength when you're hurting. You stop hiding your tenderness. You stop pretending you have to earn your own worth. You begin to expand. Self-acceptance is not about liking everything about yourself. It's about acknowledging everything about yourself, with honesty, with compassion, with patience, and with a kind of courage most people never practice. Because once you see yourself clearly, once you stop running, once you stop editing your soul to fit the world's expectations, you become whole. Not perfect, whole. And wholeness is the one thing the persona can never give you. The one thing the world cannot hand you. The one thing you cannot fake. Wholeness is the birth of your real life. The moment you stop being two people. The one you show the world, and the one who lives inside you. But to reach wholeness, you must do the thing Jung warned is terrifying. Stand in front of your soul without flinching. You're closer to that moment than you think. If this content making sense to you, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for your support. At some point in the quiet work of meeting yourself, something unexpected happens. You realize the part of you you feared the most was never the darkness. It was the truth. The truth that you have needs you never voiced. The truth that you have wounds you forced yourself to carry alone. The truth that you have desires you buried because they felt too bold, too loud, too alive. The truth that you have moments you're still ashamed of. The truth that you have potential you're terrified to claim. You are afraid of the dark corners of your psyche, yes. The resentment, the jealousy, the anger, the impulses, the cravings, the instincts. But what unnerves you more is the light hidden behind them. The strength, the depth, the hunger for a meaningful life. The magnitude of your own soul. People run from darkness because that's what we are taught to fear. But people run from their light because no one teaches them how to hold it. If you were to accept yourself completely, you'd have to accept all of it, the shadow and the fire, the wounds and the gold, the pain and the possibility. You'd have to accept that you are not as small as you pretend to be. You'd have to accept that you are capable of more intimacy than you show. You'd have to accept that you are more creative than you admit. You'd have to accept that your sensitivity is not weakness, but wisdom. You'd have to accept that your anger means your boundaries matter. You'd have to accept that your longing means your heart still beats. You'd have to accept that your sadness means your soul is alive. And you'd have to accept that everything you avoid in yourself is precisely what you need to become who you are meant to be. People cling to weakness because power requires responsibility. People cling to numbness because feeling requires honesty. People cling to the persona because authenticity requires courage. People cling to the old identity because growth requires loss. To accept yourself completely is to accept that your life must change. And change, even when it's sacred, feels like death at first. The death of the familiar, the predictable, the mask. When you finally see yourself without filters, you begin to understand why you hurt the way you do. You see the child in you who learned silence to avoid punishment. You see the teenager who hid their emotions to avoid embarrassment. You see the adult who built a life around other people's expectations. You see the lover who settled for less because they didn't know their worth. You see the dreamer who stopped dreaming because disappointment was too heavy. You see the soul who learned to carry loneliness like a second skin. This is why acceptance feels like grief. You're not grieving the truth. You're grieving how long it took to find it. But after the grief, you start to see something else. Something softer, something you didn't expect. Compassion. Compassion for the version of you who survived with the tools they had. Compassion for the part of you that broke because it wasn't protected. Compassion for the choices you made when you didn't know better. Compassion for the moments where you were doing your best in the dark. Compassion for the way you abandoned yourself because no one taught you how to stay. Accepting yourself completely requires a gentleness you've never given yourself. A willingness to look at your flaws without shame and your strengths without minimizing them. You begin to understand that you are not the villain of your life. You are the protagonist who never received the full script. You are the one who had to improvise in moments where no one showed up for you. You are the one who carried the heaviest parts of the story without guidance. And once you see that with clarity, the fear begins to shift. Not disappear, but change shape. You are no longer afraid of your darkness. You understand it. You are no longer afraid of your wounds. You hold them. You are no longer afraid of your emotions. You listen to them. You are no longer afraid of your truth. You respect it. But something deeper remains, the fear of your own potential, because to accept yourself completely means to accept that you are built for more than survival, more than coping, more than pleasing, more than enduring. You are built for creation, for meaning, for transformation, and transformation demands honesty. It demands responsibility. It demands letting go of the parts of your life that helped you stay small. It demands stepping into the version of yourself that has been quietly tapping on the door of your consciousness, waiting for you to let them in. But this is where most people turn back, because stepping into your larger self means stepping out of the story that kept you safe. It means outgrowing relationships that no longer see you, outgrowing identities that no longer fit you, outgrowing habits that numb you, outgrowing patterns that protect you but also limit you. Self-acceptance is not comfortable. It is revolutionary. It dismantles everything built on fear. It dismantles everything built to impress others. It dismantles everything built to avoid pain. And what remains is the raw architecture of your soul. This is why Jung said self-acceptance is terrifying, because once you accept yourself completely, your life cannot stay the same. And yet, in the middle of all this fear, there is a quiet truth blooming beneath the surface. You are already everything you think you are missing. The courage you want, it lives in the anger you suppress. The compassion you crave, it lives in the sadness you hide. The meaning you seek, it lives in the dreams you buried. The strength you admire, it lives in the pain you endured. The authenticity you hunger for, it lives in the truth you avoid. The moment you stop running, you realize you were never incomplete. You were just fragmented. And every piece of you you feared to look at is a piece you needed to become whole. You begin to reclaim them, slowly, intentionally, tenderly, the part of you that feels too much, the part of you that wants too deeply, the part of you that remembers old wounds, the part of you that longs for connection, the part of you that dreams beyond your current life, the part of you that holds your fire, the part of you that still believes in something more. You gather these parts not like someone collecting broken shards, but like someone recovering treasure. And as you gather them, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time yourself. The real you, unfiltered, unperformed, unmasked. And it feels like recognition. There comes a moment in the long, slow return to yourself where you finally stop holding your breath, where the fear that once wrapped itself around your ribs loosens, where the parts of you that trembled at the truth begin to settle into something steadier, something quieter, something almost peaceful. Not because everything makes sense, not because you've solved yourself, not because you've transcended your wounds, but because you're no longer fighting what is inside you. Self-acceptance doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives like dusk, soft, gradual, almost unnoticed, a gentle dimming of resistance, a slow permission to be who you already are. You begin to realize something profound. The parts of you feared the most were not dangerous. They were simply unacknowledged. Your anger wasn't a threat. It was a boundary waiting to be honored. Your sadness wasn't a weakness. It was truth looking for light. Your longing wasn't shameful. It was your heart remembering what it needs. Your fear wasn't a flaw. It was your intuition trying to guide you. Your intensity wasn't too much. It was your depth begging for space. Your sensitivity wasn't fragility. It was the most honest part of your soul. You start to see that you were never broken. You were just unfinished. A masterpiece mistaken for a mess, because no one taught you how to read your own lines. And slowly, the terrifying thing becomes the liberating thing, to accept yourself completely. Not the curated parts, not the admirable parts, not the convenient parts, everything. The memories that still sting, the choices you regret, the tenderness you hide, the emotions you swallow, the desires you silence, the wounds you abandoned, the dreams you postponed, the mistakes you never forgave, the goodness in you that you keep doubting, the strength in you that you keep resisting, the light in you that scares you because it demands more from you than the darkness ever did. Accepting yourself is not a moment. It's a meeting between who you've been and who you are becoming. A meeting between the child who needed love and the adult who learned to withhold it. A meeting between your shadow and your soul. A meeting between your truth and the life you built to avoid it. A meeting between every version of you that felt unworthy and the version of you who is finally ready to look them in the eye and say, I see you. I'm not leaving. Jung believed that wholeness comes not from perfection, but from integration, pulling together the rejected pieces of your psyche, the hidden sides of your personality, the forgotten chapters of your story. Wholeness is the courage to stand in your own complexity and not flinch. And when that courage begins to bloom in you, it changes everything. You stop chasing people who can't meet you. You stop shrinking in spaces that can't hold you. You stop apologizing for needs that are human. You stop molding yourself into shapes that suffocate your soul. You stop betraying your truth just to avoid discomfort. You stop pretending to be fine when you're hurting. You stop abandoning yourself in order to feel loved. You start choosing differently. Not perfectly, just differently. You start speaking softer to the hurt parts in you. You start listening to the emotions you used to numb. You start respecting your limits. You start honoring your desires. You start allowing yourself to want more than survival. You start letting your life be shaped by who you are, not who you were taught to be. Most importantly, you begin to feel something like reunion, a returning, a remembering, a homecoming to your own soul. The truth is, self-acceptance was never terrifying because of what you'd find. It was terrifying because of what it would demand. It demands honesty. It demands responsibility. It demands tenderness. It demands courage. It demands the death of old identities. It demands the birth of a life aligned with your truth. But what it gives you in return is something the persona could never provide you: freedom. Not freedom from your past, but freedom from hiding. Not freedom from your flaws, but freedom from shame. Not freedom from pain, but freedom from the belief that your pain makes you unlovable. Not freedom from struggle, but freedom from pretending you don't struggle. Freedom to breathe. Freedom to feel. Freedom to exist without apology. Freedom to take up space in your own life. Freedom to want what you want. Freedom to be who you are. And as this freedom grows inside you, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. You begin to feel alive. Not happy alive, not perfect, present, not fearless, honest. Aliveness is not the absence of darkness. It is the willingness to stand in both darkness and light with an open heart. And when you reach that point, when you can hold your shadow and your soul in the same breath, you become whole. Wholeness is not a finish line. It's a way of walking, a way of living, a way of breathing. It's waking up and allowing yourself to be human without punishment. It's letting your emotions speak without censoring them. It's giving your wounds time to heal without rushing them. It's being patient with your evolution. It's forgiving yourself for all the moments you didn't know how to love yourself. Wholeness is being on your own side. When Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, he wasn't warning you away. He was telling you where freedom begins. Because once you accept yourself completely, the world loses its power to define you. Your past loses its power to shame you. Your fears lose their power to control you. Your shadow loses its power to sabotage you. Your wounds lose their power to silence you. Everything that once felt like a threat becomes part of your strength. You finally stop fragmenting. You finally stop fighting yourself. You finally stop running. You finally stop pretending. You finally become real. And in becoming real, you become whole. And in becoming whole, you become free. Not perfect, not cured, not invincible, just free. Free to live a life that aligns with your soul. Free to exist fully. Free to love without shrinking. Free to rise without guilt. Free to feel without shame. Free to be yourself without fear. This is the quiet miracle of self. Acceptance. You meet the person you've been avoiding and discover they were never your enemy. They were your way home.